After a life of exotic travels and great adventures, my best friend Tyler finally settled down on a secluded island off the Florida Keys. I joined him there often in the summer for fishing, friendship, and fun. I never dreamed that my last visit would really be my last visit, or that everything I knew to be true was about to be turned upside down. The fish refused to bite that day, even though we started at 7 a.m. I didn't care. It wasn't really about the fish for me. As I gazed out at the red, oppressive sky, my mind wandered to that old sailor's saying, "Red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky in morning, sailors take warning." So what did it mean when the sky was red this early in the day? It wasn't morning. It wasn't night either. I suppose it was closer to morning than night, but surely that warning didn't mean anything, did it? Tyler turned to me, a can in one hand and a sheepish grin on his face.
Sorry about the fishing, George. I was sort of hoping you'd bring luck with you. Fishing has been rotten all season. It seems like something might have scared the fish away from this area. Even the commercial fishermen can't get that many.
I only shrugged and reached into the cooler for another can. I don't care if we catch any fish, Tyler. The sea air, this beautiful day, talking, it's more than enough to make me happy. Tyler laughed.
Oh, George, you're such a sentimental person.
Suddenly, Tyler's can clattered to the ground, making a fizzy mess as he himself stood up abruptly. The pole bent all the way into the water.
I got something. I got something.
I leaped to my feet. Hold on to it, Tyler. Don't let it go.
I can't believe I finally caught something. I haven't caught something all season. See, George, you did bring me luck.
We laughed together as Tyler reeled in his catch. It wasn't an easy thing to do. The thing must have weighed a ton. That's why I grabbed the pole along with him and tried to help him reel it in. It took forever. Normally, us working this quickly would bring the fish on board quickly. Today, however, this wasn't working. I glanced at Tyler, who was breathing heavily, a look of exhaustion clouding his face.
I've never hooked something like this in my entire life. It actually seems to be outthinking us. At first, I thought it was a tire because it was so heavy. But then it's clearly alive, and it's clearly smart. We've been battling it for 3 hours. We might have to cut the line.
I agree. We should cut it. Did you see that video online? The one where the marlin sank the boat?
Actually, I did. And I would sure hate for that to be my boat.
I pulled out my pocket knife to cut the line, but no sooner did I grab it than the line suddenly went slack. The heavy thing was still on it, but it was no longer fighting. I put my knife away and returned to helping Tyler. Together, we managed to reel it in. I don't know what I was expecting, a marlin, a shark, a skate, maybe even a small whale, but I was never expecting what we got. Tyler was the first one to see it.
George, do you see what I see?
I nodded, not believing my own eyes. It seems to be a woman.
Not quite, George. Not quite. Look at her lower half. It's like a fish. It's not a woman. It's a mermaid. A real mermaid.
The value of the scientific discovery caused me to freeze. How could this be? Were there really mermaids? Were there more of them? I couldn't take my eyes off her beautiful, impossible, nearly lifeless form in the water. Tyler, too, seemed entranced. But unlike me, who was entranced by the possibilities this presented, I think Tyler was actually entranced by the mermaid herself.
George, just don't stand there. Help me bring her aboard.
I shook my head to bring myself back to reality, if that's what you could call it once you've just discovered mermaids are real. I realized that while I was lost in thought, Tyler had made his way over to the side of the boat, grabbed the mermaid under her arms, and was now trying to pull her aboard. Naturally, she weighed about as much as a human woman, so it was difficult. Tyler was about to go over the side, so that's why I decided to help him. I joined him at the side of the boat. Together, we finally got her aboard. Falling back to my years as a doctor, I knelt by her side and felt for a pulse. She had one, and then I saw the hook. Look, Tyler, right there under her arm. There's the hook. It's in pretty deep. Not going to come out easily.
I didn't mean to hurt her. Can you help her?
I can, but not here. My medical bag's at the house. I wouldn't even want to try to remove that hook here, especially if it's just a pocket knife. Infection could set in, or even worse.
She seems out cold.
I think us fighting with her for 3 hours exhausted her. We should keep her skin moist, like you do for dolphins. Take that blanket over there and soak it over the side of the boat. Then cover her with it. That should do the trick. Tyler did as I said, but his eyes never left the mermaid.
Look at her, George. Just look at her. She's so exquisitely beautiful.
There was a wistfulness in his voice I wasn't used to hearing. For some reason, it made me feel very nervous. For a split second, I flashed back to the stories I'd heard as a child, about mermaids luring sailors to their death. Were we in danger? No, that couldn't be true. She was on our territory now, so I was fairly certain we were safe. Then I felt an icy finger along the back of my neck as I realized our boat was in the middle of the ocean, and that was clearly her territory. We had to get out of here. Right now. I had to convince Tyler to leave. Tyler, we have to go. We should get her back to the house right now. Right now. There's not a moment to lose. Tyler nodded. In a daze, he went to the steering wheel to guide the ship back to shore. The whole time he did, he was in this weird sort of trance-like state. Even though he was watching the ocean, his eyes would continually dart back and forth to look at the mermaid. It was true she was beautiful, but I wondered if there was something else hiding behind that beauty. Something more sinister. When we reached the shore, Tyler picked her up in his arms.
What should I do with her? Where can I put her that she'll be safe?
Tyler, you have a saline pool, don't you?
Yes, of course, the pool. She'll be fine in the pool. That's a great idea, George. You're always so clever.
Great, I'll get my medical bag and meet you by the pool in a few minutes. By the time I returned to the pool, the mermaid was conscious and Tyler was talking to her. She was laughing, but not actually speaking. The look at Tyler's eyes still made me nervous. He looked almost like he was hypnotized. I knelt beside the pool, motioned for the mermaid to come over to me, and began to extract the hook. Tyler talked to me the whole time I worked.
Isn't she beautiful, George? Just like a painting. I decided to name her Diana, after the Roman goddess of the hunt. They say she was very beautiful, you know, just like my Diana.
Your Diana? You mean this Diana? Tyler, please don't tell me you're falling in love with her. She's not even human. I wasn't entirely sure where this infatuation of Tyler's was likely to lead, but I knew it was nowhere good. Tyler only smiled and shrugged. I took my fishing trips alone after that. Suddenly, Tyler's whole world revolved around Diana. He'd spend all day with Diana in the pool in his bathing suit. He never wanted to do anything else anymore. He'd even taught her to speak English. He told Diana that she was his guest, not his captive. Diana only laughed and replied that she had no desire to leave. But the more time I spent around the two of them, the more I started to get confused as to who was the true captive. Was it Diana, or was it Tyler himself? I would often catch them together, their arms wrapped around each other in a loving embrace. Tyler was always telling Diana how much he loved her, but she only smiled and leaned her head against his chest. Did she love him? Did she even know how to love? Every time I saw that smile, I felt cold. I wasn't sure what about it made me so uneasy, but it was definitely something. One evening, after dinner, I tried to jolt Tyler back to his senses. Tyler, I'm trying to be objective with this, but it's not easy. You're my friend, one of my best friends. To see you falling in love with this creature.
Don't call her that. Don't ever call her that. Her name is Diana, and I love her.
Tyler, wake up. Can't you see how wrong this is? What kind of future can the two of you have together? This isn't a fairy tale. Do you plan to keep her in your pool for the rest of her life? Do you plan to join her in the ocean? And there's something else. I think she's dangerous.
Don't be such a child, George. There's nothing dangerous about Diana. She's just different, that's all. Aren't we supposed to embrace differences?
Not literally, Tyler, and you know not like this. You need to return her to the ocean and forget all about her.
Now you listen to me, George B. Wright. It might interest you to know that while you've been off swilling cocktails in the penthouse apartments of your Park Avenue patients, I've had experience that would terrify the average person, especially someone who's lived a privileged life like you. I'm not afraid of danger, and I certainly know it when I see it. You're my guest here, and you're still welcome, because you're my friend. But believe me, George, I love Diana more than anything. If you do anything, try to stop us or interfere with us, I will destroy you.
I was stunned. It wasn't like Tyler to be so emotional or so threatening. He was usually such a calm person. After his little speech, Tyler seemed to regain his characteristic calmness and walked over to the bar where he started pouring drinks. He acted like the last few seconds had never happened at all.
Did you want a drink, George?
Weeks passed and I remained with Tyler. I was planning to spend the summer there anyway, but the truth was I just didn't want to leave him. I still clung to the hope that I could pull Tyler out of this almost hypnotic hold Diana had over him. But he was actually getting worse every day. He'd hired a contractor, and now the entire sunken living room had become a pool for Diana. She lived inside the house and could go outside and inside at will. Her constant presence seemed to only increase Tyler's infatuation. He was getting worse every day, not better. He'd even started buying her clothes, dresses to make her look more like a woman. Diana put them on to please him, but they couldn't hide the fact that she had a tail. He was trying to pretend she was a real woman, even as she swam around what was once his sunken living room. One day the three of us were having dinner. Yes, that's right, Diana had a place at the dinner table now, when she made her big announcement.
Tyler, darling, our life together has been great, but I'm afraid I must return to the ocean, and rather soon.
Tyler stood up, stunned.
But why, my darling? Haven't I given you everything you need?
Not everything. I'm sure you've noticed that I haven't been eating much since I came here. My kind can go a long time without eating, but not forever. Eventually we do get hungry.
But I've been giving you fish and plants from the ocean.
Yes, that's true. And have you seen me eat any of them? Ever?
No, come to think of it, I haven't. Oh, don't go, Diana. Please don't go. I'll figure out something that you eat.
Well, I guess a couple more days wouldn't hurt.
The next day, Tyler hired a live-in chef. He even paid to bring him out from the mainland. The chef was a genius who knew how to make all kinds of foods. However, Diana wouldn't touch any of it. She kept insisting she had to go home. That evening, a couple of nights later, Tyler sank into his wing chair, his head in his hands in distress.
I don't know what I'm going to do, George. I can't provide for her, and she's going to leave.
I calmly sat across the room and sipped my drink. Perhaps that would be for the best.
George, that's a horrible thing to say. How can you say that?
Now, before you overreact, hear me out. You love Diana, right?
Yes, of course I do.
Then you should want to see her happy, safe, and well. She can't be that here, Tyler. She's suffering because she has nothing to eat. If you really love her, you can't want that for her. You have to let her go back to the ocean.
Yes, I suppose that's true. I do want her to be safe and happy, but I just don't understand what I can give her to eat. We've tried everything. I've even hired a wonderful personal chef. He can cook anything and everything, but Diana won't touch a bite, not a single bite.
That was when I made the statement that seemed innocent enough at the time, but ruined what was left of Tyler's life. Perhaps that's exactly the problem. Tyler leapt to his feet.
You figured something out, haven't you, George? You and that scientific brain of yours. What is it? Tell me what you're thinking.
I took another sip and told Tyler my theory. Diana won't eat anything, right? She says it smells bad to her. And it probably does. Everything you've given Diana to eat up until this point has been cooked. And let's not forget, Diana's from the ocean. There's no fire there, no way for her to cook something. She probably can't stand or digest cooked food. A species like that would have just evolved differently than us.
George, that's it. You're brilliant. That has to be the answer. I have to check the fridge for something uncooked. You might have just saved Diana's life.
Concerned, I followed Tyler into the kitchen. The chef was already there, preparing ingredients for tomorrow's meal. He demanded to know what we were doing in the kitchen. Ignoring him, Tyler tore through the fridge until he finally found what he was looking for, a raw steak. He put the steak on a plate and started to head towards the living room. What are you doing?
Out of my way, George. I'm giving this to Diana. This is the answer. I know it is. Diana, Diana, I brought you something you can eat. It's called meat. Raw meat. Try it.
Tyler set the plate on Diana's side of the table and waited for her to come. It didn't take long before she popped out of the water. After giving Tyler a curious glance, she picked up the steak with both hands and sank her teeth into it. That's when I noticed that her teeth were not like human teeth. In fact, they were sharp and pointy like a shark's. I suddenly saw a savagery in her eyes that not even her beauty could hide. I thought back to the fact that she mentioned she doesn't eat every day. That was the behavior of a predator, a meat-eating predator. Watching her rip apart that steak and devouring it raw chilled me to the bone. It was like watching a wolf rip apart its prey. But this was worse, far worse, because Diana was smarter than a wolf and Tyler was in love with her. I could no longer watch this horrific spectacle. I went to bed and tried to forget the sickening impression that the meal had made on me. The next morning I was looking for Tyler's dog to take for a walk. The truth was I just wanted to get away from the house. He had such a beautiful dog, a Labrador Retriever. It loved the water, so it lived outside now. This way it wouldn't bother Diana. I searched everywhere outside, but I couldn't find it anywhere. That's when I noticed the door to the living room was open, the door that provided access to Diana's pool. When I entered the living room, the smell was the first thing I noticed. The smell of fresh blood. I raced to the pool where I saw a peacefully sleeping Diana surrounded by reddish water and an almost completely devoured large dog carcass. Good Lord, what have you done? Diana, what have you done? I wanted to ask her other things, to demand an explanation, but the words would not come. Diana simply swam in place and smiled at me with her sharp, pointy teeth.
Good morning. I was just taking a nap after breakfast.
Breakfast? You ate the dog. How could you do such a thing?
I was hungry.
Her simple statement chilled me to the bone. I started screaming obscenities at her. I can't even remember the words I used. None of them seemed to make an impression on Diana, who continued to swim in circles without understanding what she'd done. But the noise did attract Tyler's attention. He stumbled into the living room, still wearing his robe and rubbing his eyes. I could tell he was still half asleep. What's going on, George?
Why are you and Diana fighting?
Diana laughed. It was an evil sound.
I honestly have no idea. I was hungry, so I ate something. It's as simple as that.
Why are we fighting? Why are we fighting? That ghoul, that inhuman monster, just devoured your dog. I feel sick. You've got to get rid of her. Send her back to the ocean where she belongs.
Diana, did you eat my dog?
Diana shrugged and continued to swim in circles.
I ate something. It was big and black and furry. It jumped into the water early in the morning and startled me, but not for long. If that was a dog, then yes, I ate it. We are hunters after all, and that dog was easy prey. It tasted good too.
I see. You see, George, it's unfortunate that it happened, and I do feel bad for the dog. But you have to realize that Diana doesn't understand many things about civilization or being around humans. They probably don't even have pets where she's from. She'll learn. She just needs more time.
No, Tyler, you have to understand. Even if you can't blame her directly, she's a wild animal and she doesn't belong in the house. Having her here is like having a ticking time bomb. You can't honestly love her after this. Don't you see? She eats raw meat that she hunts. Like a wolf. Can't you see she's a shark in a beautiful body? You can't continue this. I'm not asking you to hurt her, but I'm begging you, please, put her back in the ocean where she can hunt and eat what she wants. Suddenly I saw anger flash in Tyler's eyes, an anger I'd never seen before, and it was directed at me.
How dare you? How dare you come into my house and cast aspersions on someone like Diana like that? Pack your bags. I want you off my island by sunset, and I will personally take you back to the mainland. And don't ever call me again. Our friendship is over. We're done.
I could feel my entire body slouch over in defeat. My friend had chosen Diana over me, and though I'd miss him, I feared it would be his undoing. I realized I was no longer safe here. I wasn't sure if I was more afraid of Diana or the person Tyler had become. I didn't want to leave my friend, but there was really nothing else I could do. It took less than half an hour for me to be ready to return to the mainland. Together, Tyler and I headed towards the boat. My heart was heavy, as I knew I would never see Tyler again. We had just reached the dock when we heard it. We raced back to the house, not sure of what we'd find. I had a sickening suspicion that I already knew what had happened. When we reached Diana's pool, I saw that my worst fears were realized. The chef was in Diana's pool, and she was eating him alive. I wanted to speak, to stop her, but I found myself frozen. It was actually Tyler that said the word.
No, Diana, stop. What are you doing?
Tyler jumped into the pool and dragged the remains of the chef to the floor. It was too late, though. A large bite was missing from his neck. He had already bled to death. I warned you, Tyler. I warned you. She's a cannibal, a monster. This is no longer your private affair. This is a murder. Either you do something about Diana or I go to the police. Tyler looked at me, stunned. His mouth moved, but no words came out. How could he not see how serious this was? I had to say something to snap him out of it. Tyler, you know I'm right. And you also know that you can't stop me, unless you're planning on feeding me to her. Are you?
No, of course not, George. I would never. But you can't turn her in. You just can't. Please. I would never hurt you. I would never let Diana hurt you. You must understand what this means to me. George, please. Can't you just forget about this? You have to understand.
Oh, I understand. I understand that to you, Diana's just gotten herself in a bit of mischief. You're willing to let her go on, killing and eating whomever she wants.
No, she's not like that. You're wrong.
Tyler, wake up! She's exactly like that. Think about it. We're not the same species, even though we look somewhat similar. Animals eat other animals that are not the same species. Diana has no problem with this, no more than we have with eating a cow. She'll have no problem with eating you. It's not because she's evil, it's just because of how she's built. She can't change it, and neither can you. Think, Tyler, think. Think back to all those stories we used to hear as children of the mermaids luring sailors to their death. Why do you think they did that? For the fun of it? I'm starting to realize that they did it because they were catching dinner. It's how they hunt. I'm your friend, Tyler. I'm still your friend, and I'll always be your friend. I'll help you move the body, and in the morning we'll decide what to do. But if you don't make the right decision, I am going to the police. Tyler sank to his knees and started to cry. That shocked me because Tyler had always been so strong. He never cried in front of me before. I'm not even sure if he ever cried before. He begged me to stay until morning, and then he promised we'd handle it together. I was planning to do that anyway, so I agreed without protest. That night, I lay awake in bed for hours listening to Tyler pace in the room next to mine. I wondered what I was going to do. I didn't actually care about what happened to Diana. She was a monster, and whether they executed her or locked her up in a zoo, she deserved it. But what I was worried about was how that would affect Tyler. Would he be convicted as an accomplice? Sent to an insane asylum? Be left here all alone, mourning Diana and abandoned by the rest of the world? I didn't know how to help him, but I still wanted to. Finally, I fell into a nightmarish doze. It was in this state that I thought I heard someone enter my room. It hadn't crossed my mind earlier that none of Tyler's interior doors had locks. It was late, so I wasn't really awake enough to think about it. I could just hear someone rummaging through something, but I just turned over and continued to sleep. When I awoke in the morning, I saw that my medical bag had been ransacked. I swiftly checked the contents. Several medicines that would be poisonous if combined were missing. I raced to Tyler's room as a horrible thought occurred to me. When I arrived, I saw only a note with several empty medicine bottles.
Dear George, I have found a solution to the problem. Your friend always, Tyler.
Feeling sick, I raced into the living room, to where Diana's pool was. I could see my friend Tyler lying face down in the water. I knew he was dead, but I still went into the water to check. Surprisingly, Diana stayed at the far end of the pool. She made no move towards me. That was good for her because I would kill her if she tried. I dragged Tyler to the floor. Yes, he'd clearly been dead for several hours. I knew instantly that an overdose of my medicines was to blame. I broke down and cried shamelessly over the loss of my good friend. My grief turned to pure rage, however, when I saw that an arm had been chewed off. You monster. You horrible monster. It wasn't bad enough that you ruined Tyler's life. You had to eat him, too. I ran to the walls where Tyler had two swords crossing over the fireplace for decoration. However, these were real swords, not just decorative. They were perfect for my plans. I grabbed one off the wall and dove into the pool. Enraged, I swam towards Diana, fully intending to kill her.
You inhuman creature! I should have let you die. You've killed for the last time, Diana. I'm coming after you, and I'm going to plunge this sword right into your black heart. You'd better be ready to die.
She made no movement, either towards me or away from me, which was strange. She just floated there. Even when I was a mere foot away from her, she didn't move. Without lowering my sword, I reached out and felt for a pulse. There was none. That's when I realized what had happened. In death, Tyler had accomplished what he could not do in life. He knew Diana had to die, but he could not bring himself to do it. So he had taken the poison himself and jumped into Diana's pool, where he knew she would eat him. When Diana ate his flesh, she died from the poison. Yes, Tyler's death was a suicide, like the report said, but it was also the last brave act of a desperate man in love.